Hello, guys. I am back with another episode. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and the message reads like this: Married to a ritualistic man, my heart was broken as I saw the hand of my brother dangling. My soul was filled with agony. I wanted to cry, even though I wanted to cry, but I failed. My body was filled with pain, and I wanted to touch my husband and make him feel what I was feeling at that time. Yes, the last death that had happened in the family was the death of my cousin. I had accepted the fact that my cousin had died. He had left us. I had gone for counseling several times. I was healing because I am someone who has a very soft heart. I really love my family. I love everyone who is around me. I treated his family like my own siblings, and seeing my brother like that really got to me. Everything was in a slow motion, as if someone had pressed the pause button on my life. Everything was just going so slow. Everyone was moving on with their life, but it seemed as if my own life was put in slow motion. The blue lights, those blue lights will never leave my eyes. Even now, as I am writing to you, those blue lights, whenever I think about this story, it is like those blue lights, I saw them like yesterday. The time that I had collapsed, it was when they took him outside of the car. Looking at him when they took him outside of the car, it was just enough for me. It was too much for my body to handle. Then I just collapsed. They took him out of the car after they had managed to cut the door because he was stuck in his car and he could not get out. He was helpless, and I saw them covering him with a foil. When I saw them covering with a foil, I knew that it was over. I saw the forensic car and I knew that he was gone. He was no more. As he was being covered by that foil, I knew that his life was over. I have never seen a person who is still alive with those silver foils, but the moment that they had managed to take him out of the car and laid him on the ground, when the people who came with the forensic car pulled out a big silver foil that looked like a blanket, and when they covered him with that foil, I knew that his life was over. He was no longer there. That is when I collapsed. I was filled with anger, pain, bitterness, and confusion. My body felt to keep on seeing this, and my brain decided to shut down. I was woken up by lights. The time was around 7 p.m. How did we get here? Looks like my blood pressure was high with everything that I had seen, and something was on my leg, putting pressure and releasing. I then looked onto the other side and I saw my mom. She was there with me. How did she come here? What was I doing here? We were going to this other hospital branch with my mom, and my mom seated right next to me. I saw my husband holding flowers, and he kept on telling me that everything was going to be fine. I looked at him right into his eyes, and he looked down. He knew that I knew. I just said, "But why?" Then he started to cry. My husband cried so much. The machines started to buzz again. Looked like my blood pressure was high. It had shot up again. The nurses came rushing, and my people were asked to get out of that hospital ward which I was admitted into. I fell asleep in no time, and I was discharged after 4 days. I was asked not to go home, but rather to go to my mom's place so that I can maintain my blood pressure. Being present at the dinner would cause me to relapse. I stayed at my mom's place for a month and I went back home. We had never spoken about deep stuff with my husband, but on this day, I told him my consent and all of my fears. I had to be open with him. I was afraid that I was going to become the next victim. I didn't know who he was, and he tried to lie to me about all of this, but I told him that I was not born yesterday. I knew that he was the one who was behind this. My husband, he was the responsible for all this pain that was happening to me. all of these people that were dying, I knew that my husband was the one who was behind this. If it was not my husband, then who was causing all of this death that was happening in my family? How? I didn't know the details, but he was not clean. He was not an innocent man. I just felt it in my own blood that my husband was not an innocent man, even though he tried to portray this picture of a clean, innocent man, but he could not fool me any longer. He brushed me off and told me not to worry. Then he left. After a few days, I took a walk. My life was not moving, so I decided to get out of the house. Then I can get some fresh air. Grief was overtaking my life, and still I had fear. What if I was next? What if we were failing to have a baby because of his rituals? Whenever I would think about this issue that was happening between me and my husband, the fact that I was unable to give him a child, this caused a lot of grief in my life. On that day, as I was walking, I kept on asking myself, what if my husband is the one who is causing me not to have a baby because of all of his rituals? I asked the ladies from church to come and pray with me. I really needed answers. Those ladies from church, after I had spoken with him and after I had requested them to pray for me, they came, and at that time the man of the house had gone with his friends for a weekend like he always did. His life was all about going out with friends and partying. The ladies prayed till the following morning. All I needed was the Lord to give me answers and opened my eyes so that I could see what was happening with my husband. They left the following morning, and for the first time in my life, I experienced peace in my life. If only I had known that he was this kind of a man, I should not have bothered to get married to him. God then started opening up my eyes, and one day I overheard him in his office. He was calling someone. He didn't think that I was at home. I had told him that I was going to the gym, and I quickly rushed back home to get my gym bag, the one that I had forgotten. His phone was on loudspeaker. I could hear that the other man he was talking to sounded Nigerian. My husband was pleading that he had sacrificed a lot of people and he was tired. He wanted to stop. I clearly heard him saying this. The man kept on saying, if you do not do the next step, then your wife will be on a high risk. You need to do this. He begged him, and I failed to understand, and he was crying. This was the first time that I heard my own husband crying, and he also said, but you took my brother. What more do you want from me? I felt weak, so much weak, and this was a confirmation that indeed my husband was a ritualist. I had had enough, but he continued. My husband clearly said a lot on how he was doing this thing. He said that the rats had grown so big and he didn't know what to do with them, how to handle his rats. He had lost control of these rats. They were doing whatever they wanted. I immediately left the house and I went and I sat in the car. My life was at risk and I had to leave to where I didn't know, but I had to leave. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was forwarded to me by one of our admins, sent to us by one of our listeners. If you have any story that you want to share with us, please do not hesitate to contact us via our email address. Please let us meet again in the following episode.